Hello everyone and welcome back to Prestige Reef. Now it has been a long time since you've seen me. It's been I think at least 2 months and that's because I had the opportunity to go to America for 6 weeks. Now I didn't know I was going to America until about a week before I left. So there was a lot of things that I needed to get sorted with the coral room, and also, as you can see, the Red Sea tank is empty. Now it is unfair to burden people with my business and also my hobby. So what I decided to do is about 2 days before I left, rather than getting someone to come in and have to do water change on this tank because it's not as automated as the coral system, I decided to shut the tank down rapidly. You can see the tank has not even been cleaned because I really didn't have a lot of time. So all I did is I moved all the stock from there into the coral farm. So there never really will be, I never got around to doing that final update for you. With regards to the tank, I'm happy with the equipment. The only thing I would say is that the coral farm has ruined all other tanks for me because it's all automated. I don't have to do any lifting of water or anything. I hardly have to do any testing. Whereas with this one, it was back to what the grind everyone else has to do. So the coral farm has ruined the hobby for me, basically. There is an update on one of the live streams, so you can see that the tank was fully set up and it ran perfectly, and there was no issues having it as a display tank. It just, as I said, I didn't have the same level of passion as before, and a tank that you don't have the same level of passion for becomes a chore. Now, with regards to the future of this tank, I'm not entirely sure, because I might set it up as something like a seahorse tank or a tank with frogfish or predators, things that obviously fish, so that I can keep fish that I can't keep in the coral room. But it won't be here. I won't be having it in the kitchen because this is like pride of place. And I know I can fit a 6-foot tank here. So if I can fit a 6-foot tank, I might as well put a 6-foot tank here. That is not an immediate plan, but it's something that could potentially happen in the future. So you'll have to watch this space for what happens with the Red Sea tank going forward. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into the coral room. I'll be honest with you, not everything survived. I have left it in exactly the same way that I found it. The only difference is that I have cleaned all the glass, just so you can see inside. And the other thing that I've done is I bought a new fish. So I will show you that in a minute, because it is a beast of a fish. It is the biggest one I've ever seen. So I'll show you that in a second. Right, now the first thing I'll say is that I genuinely am really happy to be back in here. I have missed doing this incredibly. Sometimes you don't realise what you have until it's gone. And I definitely noticed that if I don't have coral and I don't have a fish tank around, I'm genuinely less happy. And the reason I know this is because I went to fish shops in America and I was happier in those fish shops. So yeah, so those of you that sometimes think that you want to break or you want to shut down your tank, quite often people come back after 6 weeks, 8 weeks. So it's not always a great idea to shut everything down and sell it, because, as I said, people often miss it. Now, the other thing I want to say is that I don't recommend anyone leaves their fish tanks for 6 weeks or longer. I have been doing this for many years, because I used to go to Australia, if those of you remember some of the old videos, because I actually used to live in Australia. So I used to go back to see some old friends. So the most important thing for me with this system was that it needed to be set up so that if I wanted to go away for an extended period of time, that I could, and that it could be run essentially by people who have no idea what they're doing. So I will very quickly show you what I did before I left, and then I will show you an update on the corals. Now, if you thought I was insane leaving the corals this long, you're about to realise just how insane it was, because let me show you the schedule of who looked after the systems. Right, so I was lucky enough to get 3 people to help look after the systems. Someone called Charlie, who is someone who I used to work with. Someone called Charlotte, who actually took my old job. And then Dan runs Reef Aquatics, which is the local fish shop near me, which is in Bognor Regis. So I couldn't have done it without Dan. He was absolutely brilliant. And if ever you're in the area, so if you're near Bognor Regis, just pop in and say hello. Tell him I sent you. He loves it when people come in and say that I'm the reason that he sent him. Actually, he hates it, but yeah. So couldn't have done without these people. But the reason it's insane is because Charlie and Charlotte have absolutely no experience when it comes to fish tanks. They don't own a fish tank. They have no. They didn't even know you could grow coral in captivity. So this really was a trial by fire for them. Now this proves that with some very, very basic knowledge and with the right equipment, that keeping a reef tank isn't as difficult as people think it is anymore. I agree, probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it was virtually impossible for some people to do it. But it does cost a lot of money to get it to do it this way. But you can make this hobby as easy as you want, or you can make it as difficult as you want. And as I said, you can have a successful reef tank with very, very little expertise, providing you buy the right equipment. Now, with the exception of Dan, this was the only information which I left Charlie and Charlotte with. I did leave some emergency information here, but I thought it's probably best to cut this off before I start the video, because obviously it's probably not wise to put people's phone numbers on YouTube. And then all I did was pretty much label System 1, System 2 has been labelled over there, and then this was pretty much what I asked them to check every single day. I couldn't expect a huge amount more from them, but it shows you that if you can run this system with just this information, just feed the fish, check the water level, which was down here, and that's just because occasionally I've had it where the auto top-up didn't work properly, so I like to make sure that it's in line with this square. And then also just to make sure that there was enough fresh water in this tank so that when Dan came to the water change, everything was ready for him. So, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all the information that I gave them. Now, as I said, pretty much everything else runs itself. So the GHL keeps an eye on the salinity and pH and redox and temperature. It also does the KH. The radions turn on and off by themselves. They were all preset. I calibrated all of the GHL before, literally a couple of days before I left, so you can see what I mean by I had a huge amount to do. So they were both calibrated before I left, and the NIOS protein skimmers empty themselves. And even my fish selection is designed to make things as easy as possible. So obviously I have RAS for pests, I have copper bands for any aptasia, and I have tangs for algae. Now, I will explain, there was one slight downfall with regards to what happened, and that's that people, even though I actually put out like a specific amount of food that they could see how much it was, there was a little bit of overfeeding going on. So what I realized is that the Acro system, which was the only one, so some of the systems did really well. The LPS did great. LPS and SPS did better than usual, if I'm honest, because I usually run this as a really, really low nutrient system. But the Acropora, most of them were fine, but I had a couple of deaths, which I'll show you in a minute. Obviously, these trays are 6 foot by 3 foot, and in some of them I've got literally one tang. Now, one tang is fine when you have low nutrients, but when you have higher nutrients, it can't keep up with the rate of algae growth. So I've moved a few tangs around. So that was the only thing that I noticed, really, was that there was a really, really minor level, like a really small amount of algae growth, which now I've moved some of the tangs around, is already starting to disappear. But everyone has algae in their tanks, and I'm also going to start bringing the nutrient levels down to where they were before. Right now, I'll be honest with you, there's not a huge amount of difference with this tank, so I don't really have a lot to show you. So I'll probably start down here. Now, what I did before I went away is I did a huge amount of frags where they were quite small pieces put on the plugs, and as you can see, they have pretty much all grown out, which is good. They're actually growing too much because they're growing onto the frag racks, and that's when things become a little more difficult. So now, as I said in one of my Facebook posts recently, I think people will be pleasantly surprised with the size of the frags they're receiving at the moment, because the ones on the website just don't do it justice, because obviously they're a lot bigger. For many of the corals, the frags are a lot bigger than what they appear. So as you can see, with this tank, pretty much everything was fine. You can see the bicolour Goni. One of them is less pink than the other, but again, that red Goni over there, you can't see it very well. That red Goni over there was actually one that was doing really not very well just before I left, and as you can see, it's now completely got its colour back. And yeah, as you can see, all these frags are have grown out like crazy. So I will probably, in fact, I know I'm going to put a discount code out tonight because I need to start moving out some of these corals. And this has absolutely exploded, this Montebora. But yeah, and then these yellow pieces, these crazy tea pieces, these came from Reef Dork, which obviously you saw in the last video. Now if we have a look at the top tray where I keep the Acropora and some Montepora, this is where things haven't gone quite as well. So, do you remember I said a minute ago that there appears to be an algae issue? The tangs can't keep up with it. Well, some of these acros obviously have died. These ones must be a little while ago. And then as you can see, algae has grown over them. And it's too much basically for the tanks to be able to keep up with. Because there really is only there's only really one tang in this tank. And in a 6 foot by 3 foot system, you would usually have more than one tang. Now, those of you who saw my last video will remember this coral, which is the reason this is white is actually because it got stung. It got stung by this Montepora. Both of these are actually Reef Dork's corals. This piece here, this green and blue piece, which you can't see properly because of the radions. This green and blue piece was originally this colour. It was like a sort of a bluey colour, and as you can see, it is now green and blue. So I'm not quite sure why it's like that. But I sent Reef Dork a picture of it, and I just asked him if he ever wants me to fix any more of his corals, just let me know, because it's I don't know. He did respond actually. He told me he's got some corals I can turn brown for him. But yeah, this was one of Reef Dork's corals. I believe this came from Reef Dork as well. This Montepora came from Reef Dork. This Undata Montepora came from Reef Dork. And there's a few other pieces that they're scattered around all over the place. As you can see, what I've done is I've moved some tangs around. So I've got this little tiny sailfin. There's actually 3 of these little tiny baby sailfins in here now, because they can get between the cracks to try and clear up some of that algae. But I don't, as I said, as soon as I bring the nutrients down, it should virtually go back to normal. So, and the only reason this piece here, these 2 pieces here, are so pale is because they had actually fallen underneath the rack. I don't know how long they were there for, but they should colour up again. Now, something I did forget to show you a minute ago is that before I left, to make things easier for everyone, I measured out a ton of these. I measured out about 20 of them. There are, because I did a few extras just in case. They are either 7 kilos, which are for system 1, or system 2 take 8.5 kilos. So that's per water change per week. So you can imagine how much salt I get through in a year. So those of you with smaller tanks, you think, oh, I'm spending a lot of money on salt. Can you imagine what my salt bill is? I don't even want to think about it if I'm honest, but I know it goes into hundreds and hundreds of pounds. So, but yeah, that was to make Dan's job easier, because all he has to do then is he just has to put the salt in here. And then fill it up using the valve with fresh water, using the valve here. So there is a video on how I do a water change on this system if you actually want to see it, but it really does take about 5 minutes to do. In fact, I'm going to do one today. Quickly, as I'll show you system 2, I will see if you can see the new fish. You cannot see the new fish at the moment, it's hiding from you. But I can see it. But I'll show you the new fish. As I said, it is a monster. It was I don't know how long I'll have it here for. I do know someone that could take it if I feel like it's because it's quite big. So I know someone that would take it, but it was in like one of those little shop tanks. So I think it's better to be in here than it would be. But basically, it went to a shop, but it came from someone else's tank. So it was from a tank breakdown. So it's been in captivity for years, but it's probably the biggest one I've ever seen. So let me show you system 2. Right, now personally I think System 2 fared better than System 1. So as you can see, same again with the Montipora, but this time with the Leptocerus and the Sophastria. I did lots and lots of little frags before I went, and especially with the Sophastria, you can see that they have basically just all encrusted over the plugs. Now I know a lot of online sellers use small plugs, but I've decided that I don't want to use small plugs anymore, and you can see that I'm using, these are actually larger plugs. I'll give you an example. Now, as you can see, there's a pretty big difference between the size of these plugs. The reason I've decided to go for big plugs is because, same as before, I want to try to give people better than what they expect. So if they're expecting the small plugs, then give them the big plugs. But also, as you can see, in 6 weeks, they have encrusted over most of the big plugs. So if they're encrusting over the big plugs in 6 weeks, they are encrusting over the small plugs much quicker. Here are some more. These are some more Reef Dorks corals. As you can see, I still haven't, because I picked up Reef Dorks corals literally just before I went away. So, which again, that was a risk in itself. I was concerned, but they appear, you can see they're actually encrusting onto the racks. But what I plan to do this week is I need to frag a lot of the euphyllias, and I need to frag some of these larger pieces down. And then, again, these are actually sun corals. Now, I only saw them, I've had them for months, but I don't come in here in the evening very often, and I just assumed that they weren't doing very well. I know that they come out at night, but I've just sort of never checked. And for the first time, I saw them come out last night. And then again, these are some more of the war corals, which I fragged before I went. And the things that have gone absolutely insane is the Galaxia. The Galaxia has done so well. See, I've turned all the current off to do this video, but to do this video, I turned all the current off, and they have all their long tentacles out. The only thing in this tank which didn't fare so well were some of the acros, which is because the lights in here is too low for them really. But generally speaking, pretty much all the corals. We had a couple of not happy chalices there, but I think they weren't happy before I left. But yeah, pretty much, as you can see, everything. Let's put it this way: I could have been a lot worse. I'm not entirely sure why the Galaxia at the bottom did so well, and then the Gold Galaxia at the top didn't do so well. The other thing I've noticed is this tank has a lot more coralline algae in it than when I left, but the tank over there, for some reason, a lot of the coralline algae died off in the bottom tray. So, but I've checked all the parameters. The salinity was slightly high, but in theory, it should all grow back pretty quickly. And then the final tank, which has probably been the most successful one because it's grown absolutely out of control, is is the tank with the zoas in. So as you can see, the zoas have gone mental. Now I do need to frag these all up again. Problem is they're all growing on the racks, but I will get round to doing it. I'm not a huge fan of fragging zoas, but I will get there. And as you can see, the kryptonite mushrooms there in the middle. And then and the other things that have done really well, grown quite a lot, is the gonies. And again, same again down here. The increased levels of nutrients have made things explode. This rack was actually in the Red Sea tank, and it just had a few corals on it. And as you can see, it has now got a few more than a few. So yeah. Oh, and probably the greatest success story. The greatest success story is Xenia. This pulsing Xenia has gone absolutely insane. Before I left, you could see the rack below, but as you can see, it's you can't see the rack at all anymore. And I believe at least 12 frags, because I know Dan was taking some frags out while I was gone. At least 12 frags have come out, and you can see that you can't even see. He said they came out of the middle, so where that was, I don't know. But yeah, I've got plenty of pulsing xenia if anyone wants some. Now this is the beast that I keep talking about. This is a marginalis, I believe is how it's pronounced, butterfly fish. It is an absolute monster. It's probably the biggest one I've ever seen. You'll be forgiven for thinking it's a dodgy looking copper band because it looks like it's missing some of its bars. But this is actually a different type of fish. And look, you can see it's playing up for the camera. But I plan to have either one of these or a copper band in every tank. I don't have any Aptasia in here, but when I found out that it come from someone's tank and it did eat Aptasia, and the fact that it was eating, I wanted to buy it pretty much straight away. So, so yeah, as I said, it is quite big, especially in comparison to the copper bands I've got in the other tanks. But eventually, as I said, I plan to have one in every tray, just as a precaution, because if I miss something, this little guy will eat it for me. Right, that's the other thing I should probably do. I should probably do an update on what fish stock I have in each system, because I have said this many times before, I am not a very good YouTuber, and I don't document things very well, and I do show you what new corals I get in, but it's pretty unusual for me to show you what fish I get. For example, there is a little possum wrasse down there which came from the Red Sea tank, and I think you've seen the soho in one video before, but the jewel tang, which was here just a minute ago, that is now not going to be here. I thought it'd come out for food, but it's oh yep, there you go, it's just coming back. There you go, the jewel tang, which is actually pretty rare, you don't see them very often. Oh, that's probably why it's hiding, because the sailfin, not the sailfin, the soho tang. Generally they're fine, but obviously because there's food around, the soho is obviously a little bit more territorial than usual. But yeah, as I said, I've got some quite nice fish in here, and most of them are hidden away and people don't get to see them. And the very last thing that I did is to keep an eye on everything. As you can see, I have cameras here. There's actually 5 of them, and you can see that I put little orange filters on them so that I can see through the blue light to see if the corals are growing. The thing that I actually found most interesting is the Montipora at the bottom. You could literally see the growth ring on it. Anyway, I'm going to finish the video here because I'll show you what I just did. Thought, you know, I'll do a water change just before I finish, and then I'll do the outro last. And unfortunately, the bag split, so I now have to deal with that. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you enjoyed watching the video. If you did enjoy it, why not click that like and subscribe button. I just want to say thank you to everyone that supports me on Patreon, even though obviously I've not been around for a little while. I will be back more often. And yeah, so if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Have a good week, and I will see you next time.